finally got to talk with Mr. Green yesterday. We talked for about an hour and we discussed a lot of things. And I still came up with some questions. One, the first, mine is kind of like a two-part. The first part is a yes, no. And then the second one is maybe a little more detailed. But we, your constituents, feel we're not properly represented in government. For example, you voted yes to the cap and trade. I understand from what you just said, apparently you did so because Democrats told you to.
No. What I said?
You went along.
I said because we got amendments to the bill, and there were Democrats who voted against it, but because I got what I call a half a loaf for our refiners, and if I had voted against it in the committee, or even on the floor, we had two members, Charlie Gonzalez, Congressman Gonzalez from San Antonio, and I are on the same subcommittee and the full committee. If we had voted no, we wouldn't have been able to get what we needed for at least some help for our refiners. In fact, I spent my whole day today talking about energy, and my last stop was at the ConocoPhillips chemical plant, and they appreciated. They said, "We appreciate what you did on the cap and trade because you helped us. Now we need the Senate to do some more." So that's why I voted for it.
Okay,
Your next question.
Okay. That was just leading into the yes/no answer.
Okay.
Okay. It seems your constituents, though, were pretty solidly against the cap and trade, and we can see why now that all the information we're getting about how much it's going to cost. But are you going to vote also for the health care bill against the wishes of your constituents? Just
Well,
yes or no?
You're making an assumption in our constituents, and I haven't run any polls. But you know, okay.
Yes or no?
I'm not going to vote against my constituents, but I also know that we have almost 243,000 of our constituents who don't have access to health care.
I mean, there's 500,000 that do.
Well, so now, you know, I have to admit, you know, we're all guessing, and I've run polls like everybody else has, and I'd like to see it. And I've had people, even on cap and trade, they would send me polls that said our district was polled and therefore controlling carbon. You know, the polls are basically whoever listens, whoever asks the question. And so I don't like to just take somebody's opinion on a poll. But town hall meetings are not a poll. You know, you all came here because you wanted to. Our district is 65% Hispanic. Okay, you know, so I want to make sure I represent everybody in our district. And I'm going to represent our district. I have for many years. I intend to continue.
No, you don't.
Is that Ms. Boykin?
No,
Okay. Let her finish.
Not us,
Okay. It has been asked of the president and of several congressmen, would you participate? Would you and your family be willing to accept the government plan health care over the congressional health care? And they all answered no. I understand that an amendment was offered by Joe Barton, Congressman Joe Barton, in committee, where everyone in America would be allowed to participate in the same health care as Congress, and that was defeated.
Okay. Let me talk about, we don't have a congressional health plan. We have a federal employees plan, and that's part I'm under. And I would vote. I didn't have a chance to vote on the public plan to cover members of Congress, but I would vote for it, and I would put my family under it, because the best example I have of a real-world case of a federal government plan is Medicare. At 65, we have members of Congress who have to go on Medicare, because there's no exceptions. If you work for Exxon or Shell or Lyndale or anywhere else, even though you're working, my dad worked until he was 70, but he went on Medicare in his employer. So, you know, I don't have any problem, because I think the government plan is going to be similar to what Medicare, and I have a lot of people who are waiting, they're 65 to get Medicare.
So you would put your family on the public
Well,
plan?
my family is only my wife and I, so I would put my wife and I on that.
Well, you would.
Yes, ma'am.
You're the first congressman I've heard say that?
Well, now, I have said, I don't know where you got Joe Barton. I was on the committee. I sat through every hearing.
I was at the town hall.
Okay, but I don't know. Joe Barton tried to introduce an amendment. The problem in Congress is that amendment wasn't in order for our bill. We don't have jurisdiction in our committee over the federal employees health care plan. And so that amendment, Joe talked about it. In fact, I remember saying I would vote for it. But you know, there is so much misinformation going on, and if you hear it, that's fine. But I know they, all our hearings are on C-SPAN, so, if you want to fall asleep, you might want to go monitor those hearings.
But why does there need to be a different health plan?
Okay, let me answer that. Why would there need to be a different health plan? The federal health care plan is like any employer-based insurance. The state of Texas employees have employer-based insurance. The city of Pasadena have employer-based. The constables have county employer-based insurance. When I had my business and managed my business, we had employer-based insurance. And so the same goes for federal government. But to make sure that that government plan is not a bad plan, I don't have any problem with making members of Congress be a part of it. I assume the goal of that plan, though, is to have a low, a medium, and a high plan, just like most large companies and large employers can. So you can buy it at a low cost, you buy it at a middle cost, or a high cost. So, and that should be the, if you can't get it anywhere else, that's the only federal fallback.